A very good morning to all my dear students. Welcome back to your science class. Today, again, it's time for revision. For today's class, the chapter which we are going to revise is chapter number 12, Reproduction in Plants. So let's start our revision. The name of the chapter is Reproduction in Plants. So what does the word reproduction means? Production of new individuals from their parents is known as reproduction. Reproduction occurs in all the living beings which give rise to their offsprings, like plants, birds, animals, etc. So we can say that reproduction is the most fundamental process carried out by living organisms. However, there are differences in the way living organisms exhibit the process. Since the chapter is about plants, let's discuss some basics about it. How does the reproduction happens in plant? The plant consists of leaf, stem, and roots. These are the vegetative parts of the plant, which help the plant in reproduction. The plants also has fruits which contain seeds inside them. Usually we discard the seeds. Seeds again help in reproduction as they germinate and form new plants. Plants have flowers as well, which have pollen grains inside them, which help the plant in reproduction. Flowers may have either the male part or the female part, or both the male and female part. What are these male and female parts? The female part of a plant is carpel and the male part is the stamen. The female part, which is carpel, consists of stigma, style and ovary. It also has ovule, while the male part, stamen, consists of anther and filament, which is also called as stalk. Moving ahead, modes of reproduction. There are several ways of reproduction of plants. They are categorized in two terms. First one is asexual reproduction and the second one is sexual reproduction. What is the main difference between them? Asexual reproduction means that new plants are obtained without producing seeds. In sexual reproduction, new plants are obtained from seeds, which means that in asexual reproduction, plants can give rise to new plants without seeds, whereas in sexual reproduction, new plants are obtained from seeds. Asexual reproduction. Just now we discussed that these are the plants which produce offsprings without production of seeds or spores. For example, here you can see an image of a plant. If I cut the plant with leaves and a small portion of stem, then I place the part of the plant in the soil. After some time, that portion of the plant starts growing and forms into a new plant, which means that a new plant has been reproduced with a small portion of the parent plant. It means the reproduction has been happened. But what kind of reproduction is this? This is asexual reproduction because we obtained a plant without the production of seeds or the spores. Let's discuss the modes of asexual reproduction. They are vegetative propagation, budding, fragmentation, and spore formation. Vegetative propagation. This is a type of asexual reproduction. As the name suggests, reproduction occurs through the vegetative parts of the plant, such as stems, leaves, buds, and roots. These plants take less time to grow and are exact replicas of their parents as they are produced from a single parent. Bryophyllum pinnatum. Bryophyllum. Bryo means sprout and Phylum means leaf. So that's why we call this plant as sprout leaf plant. This plant has buds in the margin of leaves. If the leaves of this plant falls on a moist soil, each bud can give rise to a new plant. Here you can see that it is very notable for vegetatively growing small plantlets on the fringes of leaves. These eventually drop off and root. The new plantlets arise from the tissue in the notches of leaves, which are the buds, or you can also say that the sprouts. Here are some examples of plants which give rise to a new plant from the leaves. Plants such as cacti produces new plants when their parts get detached from the main plant body. Each detached part can grow into a new plant. Apart from cactus, there are many more plants like African velvet, aloe vera and many more. What is budding? First of all, we should know what is a bud. When a small bulb-like projection comes out from any cell, that part is called bud. Here in this picture, you can see a small bulb-like projection coming out from the yeast cell, which is also called as bud. Budding is a type of asexual reproduction in which a new organism develops from an outgrowth or bud due to cell division at one particular site. Since the reproduction is asexual, the newly created organism is a clone, which is genetically identical to the parent organism. Fragmentation. Some organisms have the ability to break into two or more fragments, with the new fragment becoming a new independent individual. They multiply rapidly in a short period of time. That is why fragmentation is also known as a splitting method of reproduction and is seen in many organisms such as cyanobacteria, fungi, and many other plants. You might have seen some slimy green patches in ponds. These are algae. When water and nutrients are available, algae grow and multiply rapidly by fragmentation. An alga breaks up into two or more fragments. These fragments or pieces grow into new individuals. This process continues and they cover a large area in a short period of time. Fragmentation is a very common type of vegetative reproduction in plant. It occurs when a shoot that is rooted becomes detached from the main group. Then comes spore formation. Spores are present in the air and are covered by a hard protective coat to bear low humidity and high temperature conditions. Spores germinate and develop into new organisms under favorable conditions. You may observe spores in a cotton-like mesh on the bread. When spores are released, they keep floating in the air as they are very light and can cover long distances. Under favorable conditions, a spore germinates and develops into a new individual, and plants such as moss and ferns also reproduce by means of spores. Now we have covered all the topics under asexual reproduction, which were vegetative propagation, budding, fragmentation and spore formation. Now we will start sexual reproduction. Reproductive parts of plants are flowers. In our previous video, we studied about the structure of flower and their reproductive parts. Stamen being male reproductive part and pistil being the female reproductive part. If one of these reproductive parts are present in a flower, it is said to be a unisexual flower. For example, papaya. If both stamen and pistil are present in flowers, they are called as bisexual flowers. Example, rose. Both male and female unisexual flowers may be present in the same plant or in different plants. The male reproductive part, stamen, consists of anther and filament. Anther contains pollen grains which produces male gametes. And the pistil consists of style, stigma and ovary. The ovary consists of one or more ovules. Ovules are where female gametes or the egg is formed. Female and male gametes fuse to form a zygote. Now we have to study pollination, which comes under sexual reproduction. Then we will study fertilization. When pollen is transferred from the anther to the stigma of a flower through carriers such as wind, water, or even by insects, then this process is called as pollination. It can be a case of self-pollination if pollen lands on the stigma of the same flower or another flower of the same plant. But if pollen grains land on stigma of a flower of a different plant but of the same kind, it is called as cross-pollination. Now let's study fertilization. Male and female gametes fuse to form a zygote. A zygote is formed as a result of the fusion of gametes which later develops into the embryo. Fruits and seeds are formed post-fertilization. Ripened ovary goes on to become a fruit. Ovules give rise to seeds which contain the embryo in the protective covering. And now we have covered sexual reproduction as well. Let's study fruits and seed formation. As you can see in this picture, an adult plant produces a flower. Pollination and fertilization takes place. After that, each ovule within the flower's ovary contains a fertilized egg, which keeps on growing and making the fruit as the ripened ovary. Petals and stamens fall away. Then each ovule becomes a seed and ovary becomes the fruit. When the fruit ripens, the seeds are dispersed. Each seed contains a tiny plant. If a seed sprouts or begins to grow, it will become a new plant. Some fruits are fleshy and juicy, such as mango, apple, and orange, and some are hard like almond and walnuts. Now let's study our last topic, which is seed dispersal. Plants make seeds that grow into a new plants, but if seeds just fall off to the ground under the parent plant, they might not get enough sun, water, or nutrients from the soil. Because plants cannot walk around and take their seeds to other places, they have developed other methods to disperse or move their seeds. The most common methods are wind, water, animal, and explosion, and also fire. Plants benefit by seed dispersal. It prevents the competition between the plant and its own seedlings for sunlight, water, and minerals. It enables plants to invade new habitats for wider distribution. Have you ever blown on a dandelion head and watched the seeds float away? This is wind dispersal. Some plants like Corey and maple trees have winged seeds. They don't float away but flutter to the ground. With wind dispersal, the seeds are simply blown about and land in all kinds of places. To help their chances that at least some of the seeds land in a place suitable for growth, these plants have to produce lots of seeds. Here in this image, you can see winged seeds such as those of drumstick and maple, and light seeds of grasses and hairy fruit of sunflower get blown off with the wind to far away places. Many plants have seeds that use water as the means of dispersal. the seeds float away from the parent plant. They usually develop floating ability in the form of spongy or fibrous outer coat as in coconut. Kowai trees also use water dispersal. They have a hard seed coat that allows them to float down streams and rivers. That is one of the reasons kowai trees are commonly found on the stream banks. Some seeds are dispersed by animals, especially spiny seeds with hooks which get attached to the bodies of animals and are carried to distant places, like xanthium and urana. Humans can also spread seeds if they get stuck to our clothing or shoes. Some seeds are dispersed when the fruits burst with sudden jerks. The seeds are scattered far from the parent plant. This happens in case of castor and balsam. Some plants like peas, flax have seed pods. Some plants like peas and flax have seed pods that dry out once the seeds are ripe. When dry, the pods split open and the seeds scatter. Plants cannot run away from a fire, so some plants have developed a way to help their seeds survive. There are some species of pine trees that require the heat from a fire before their cones will open and release seeds. For this, the intensity and the timing of fire is important. It needs to be hot enough to trigger the cones to open, but if fires are too frequent, there is not enough time for the plants to grow big enough to make new seeds. That is all about reproduction in plants. Hope you have understood the topics which we have studied today. Keep studying. Take care. See you in our next class.